Hey everyone, times are tough, and going to get back to one of the original thoughts I had starting this channel was to give you guys some life hacks, things that make your life a little easier, and we're going to do some recipes for a bit. And this is to give you something that is inexpensive that you can do and help keep the costs down, keep your family fed. So let's start off with a basic dessert, right? You can go out and get ice cream. You can go buy treats and things like that. But this recipe is healthy, a lot healthier than what you're going to see on the box anyway. So it starts out with a Kodiak double chocolate brownie mix, right? You're going to put that in. Now you're going to go grab some milk. I use almond milk. You're going to put about 3/4 cup of almond milk in. Now, I have a tendency to go a little on the soft and squishy side. So you're going to change your ingredients if you want things a little bit more dry. I then go and throw 2 eggs in, right? That's from the box. So you throw the box mix in. You've got your 3/4 to a cup of milk. You've got 2 eggs. Now, instead of putting in the oils or any of that stuff, I take 3 heaping scoops of, I use Chobani Greek vanilla yogurt, and I put that into the mix. That's it. That's all you have to mix together. It's going to cook for 25 minutes at about 350 degrees Fahrenheit. I put it in a little 6x9 pan and just tuck it in. It doesn't need to be covered or anything. Just pop it in there and it goes. It's double chocolate because there's chocolate chips in with the chocolate brownie. And now you've got a healthy chocolate brownie mix. It's oat. So anybody who's got any gluten issues or things like that, obviously this won't work. But it's an oat based. So it's protein from the mix itself, plus the protein from the eggs, plus the protein from the yogurt and the protein from the milk that you put in. So it's a high protein mix. I have a tendency to cut it into sixths, but that's just my personal preference. And then I'll throw some ice cream on top of it. And, I get a week just about out of a box. So I'm paying about $6 for a box. So it'd be $1 a day from the mix. Then there's just the eggs, which your prices may vary, but it's 2 out of a dozen eggs. So it's 1/6 of whatever price of eggs is. So let's say $3. So it's a 6 of $3. And then you've got the milk. Milk's usually about $3, but you're only putting in a cup. So it's marginal how much that's going to be. And that's it. It sits in there and it rises. So all you have to pay for is the electricity at that point, and find something to put it in if you're not going to eat all of it at one point. I recommend putting it something to seal it, because my recipes especially don't have a lot of preservative qualities to them. The shelf life isn't the same as something you might buy at a store, for example. Second one I'm going to do is, this one is called Foo Ga. At least that's what the original recipe was when it started. I took a class online. The woman who did it there was doing a full chicken, etc. So this is a chicken broth recipe with spices to it. Now, I'm just going to give you the basics of it. I'm not going to give you the full recipe. You can go find the ingredients that you want to use online. It takes things like ginger, which I recommend going with real ginger and not in a jar. Onions, scallions. Again, you're going to cut those up and throw those in. You're going to put the chicken in the bottom. It uses cardamom. It uses fennel seed. It uses anise seed. If you haven't had experience with fennel and anise, they both have a licoricey smell to it. You're going to throw some clove in there, some cinnamon. So, like I said, you can go find a list of the spices that other people have used online. I deviate quite a bit from it, so it depends on how traditional you want to go. But here's my hack for you. Instead of doing a whole chicken, go buy a chicken breast. Chicken breasts are cheap. You're going to get a crock pot. You're going to need a mortar and pestle, a strainer, a bowl, and a jar. If you're going to have leftovers, you're going to need the jar. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to put the chicken breast in the crock pot. Now, I've got a crock pot that takes 4 cups of water once I've got everything into it, and that's all it takes. It's a small crock pot. One of the things I've had a lot of problems with cooking is cooking just for me without making things for like the next week from one session of my cooking. I used to cook for myself and 2 other people, and I would cook enough for a family of 8. Just what I used to do with the wok. I just threw a bunch of stuff in there and just kept adding and cooking and forgot how big everything was. So I've got a small crock pot. Now this crock pot runs at about 80 watts, and I'm going to bake in there for about 8 hours. So at the bottom, you're going to put the chicken breast. All right, just cut up the size of the chicken breast you want. Leave it as a whole piece. All right, if you're going to put the whole chicken breast in, just put the whole chicken breast in. I usually cut a chunk off because it's I'm trying to plan out what I want. I'm going to get 2 meals out of this small crock pot. Then I will chop up onion and throw it in there. Scallion, throw it in there. I use garlic. I love garlic. I throw the garlic in there. Now, garlic is a bit of a preservative, so it will let your stuff last a little longer that way. And then I will throw in cut up ginger root. All right. Those are the ingredients that are going to go in with the chicken itself in the water. But you've got all those seasonings. Now, I saw her do it. I did the same thing. I went out and bought a T-ball. If you are not familiar with these, they're a metal wire ball that you would put tea ingredients into. In this case, we're going to put the seasonings in there. Now, the reason I have a mortar and pestle is she would heat the ingredients to try to bring the flavor out of it, and she was throwing in things whole. I don't do either of those things. I figure I'll get more flavor if I chop the onion up and throw the onion in pieces. Plus, when I get done, I can scoop that onion back out and serve it with the dish. In her case, she was throwing everything out other than the chicken for the most part. Now, whether you put turmeric or something on the chicken before you put it in there is up to you. But you've got your chicken breast in there. You've got your cut up onion. For me, it's garlic and scallions, and I'll slice up some ginger and put it in there. And that's in with the main. Now, the other ingredients, depending on how many I've got, I'll put them into the little mortar and pestle I've got. Now, what I'm trying to do here is just kind of bruise the stuff a little bit, get the seeds a little bruised up so that the water goes through it more evenly and goes through it more easily. The reason I'm doing this goes back to the original way it was cooked. So the recipe, as she put it together, you were doing 20 minutes, 20 minutes, and 20 minutes. So 20 minutes of the chicken, 20 minutes of the chicken with the veggies, and then 20 minutes more with the spices. But the problem is you're only leaving them in for 20 minutes. So if you're going to go longer and you're going to put them in for an 8-hour period, you don't have to use as many. And if you bruise them a little bit, you can get away with a few less that way as well. As I found that if I crush them a little bit, do a little bruising on the seeds, when they go into like the fennel and the cardamom, when it goes into the ball, it goes into the water much quicker that way. This will leave you with a little bit of an aftertaste of licorice when it gets done, if you use the anise, star anise and the fennel seed. But originally, the whole thing would be put together and put in a pot, and cooked for an hour. And like I said, you're doing every 20 minutes, you're doing something. So while you're cooking the chicken, you're getting the vegetables ready to go in. Again, I chopped them up. It wasn't that way in the original recipe. So when I start up now and I put it all in the crock pot, I'll put the ball at the top. I'll fill the crock pot up with water, put the ball at the top, make sure that the ball is, that the spices are in the water, and turn the crock pot on. So my stove would cook it probably at about 500 to 700 watts of power for an hour. The crock pot cooks at 80 watts, and it's going to go for 8 hours. So it's about 640 watts. So it's not much different than if I put it on the stove. Does it need 8 hours? Nope. You can probably get away with 6. I did 6 the other day. Or you could turn it up onto high and cook it for less time, but at a higher temperature. Again, depending upon the crock pot is how much power it's going to use. I was trying to cut back on the power a little bit from the main thing, and I find it from a cooking standpoint to be rather nice to be able to just get everything ready, put it together in a pot, turn on the pot, and let it cook. All right, there's nothing you have to do after you've started that up, nothing you're going to touch. You're just going to leave it there and let it cook until you get done. Now, when you get done, you're going to pull that chicken breast out, put the chicken breast off to the side, let it cool a little bit because you're going to be pulling it apart with your fingers. You don't want to be burning your fingers on it. While that's cooling, and again, with the crock pot, it's going to come out a lot cooler than it would have coming out of the boiling water. You're going to now take the remains in the crock pot after you take the ball out and pour it into the strainer, which will be over the bowl. So the bowl is going to give you your broth, right, for this time, and for me for the next time around. The broth will be there. From there, I'm going to also take, from the strainer, I can pull out as much of the garlic or the scallions, onion, ginger, as much as I want out of there that I want to put into the bowl with the noodles. Now, I'm going to cut up some mushroom and put the mushroom into the bowl. So I usually there's 2 ways you can put it. You can put the stuff on the top or the bottom. I put the mushrooms on the bottom just so when the broth comes in and is pushed over that, it's going to be absorbed into the mushrooms. But now that you got the broth in there, you're going to take about a cup of the broth. Again, this is for 1 serving like I do. And you're going to put it in a bowl with the thin rice noodles. Now, I use the Thai ones. They're very long. They're actually bent over at the bottom, which makes them a royal pain to take out of the package, but they're nice and long. They're very thin. If you've ever seen an Asian movie with a bowl of noodles and you see those long noodles that they're pulling up, that's what these are. They're made out of rice. You're going to put them in there and you're going to pour the hot broth on top of them. Now, they're going to need to be heated and then let set for 4 minutes. And that's all it takes to cook the noodles. So you're going to put a little more electricity in, you're going to heat up the pot that they're in, and as soon as that's done, as soon as you got a nice boil or even close to a boil, they melt pretty quickly. And you've already started with hot broth out of the crock pot. So it doesn't take much to get it kind of churning a little bit, to get those things dropped down. As soon as they drop down in the pot, which is long before it boils, you can turn off the pot, swirl it around a little bit, let it sit for 4 minutes. About 2 minutes in, you're going to swirl it again. Instructions are on the package. So you've chopped up the mushrooms. You put the mushrooms in a bowl. You're going to put the noodles. You're going to scoop those out if you've got too much fluid. And this becomes the art of it, making sure you don't have too much fluid in there. I usually try to leave it at a cup. I only take a cup of the broth, just a little bit more than a cup, and put it in with the noodles. That gives me enough for the noodles to absorb the any of the nutrients that went into the broth, plus I get the broth. That will then get poured over my existing mushrooms that are there. On top of that, you sprinkle your scallions, your ginger, garlic, and onion that you've made. And then you're going to go and you're going to put over the top your torn up chicken over the top. Now, again, you're going to pull that apart with your fingers, and you're going to put some of the broth aside in a jar. Again, measure out your cup, so the next time you want to cook this thing, you don't have to measure anything. You're just going to pour the jar in. Take some of your vegetables and put them aside. I would suggest you leave the mushroom to do it fresh the next time around. And you're going to put aside about half of the chicken that you just took out. Tear the rest of it up, put the rest of the chicken over the top, and you're done. It's as simple as that, and you've got something that you didn't have to do much work on, a little prep work at the beginning to get everything thrown together, chopped up and thrown in, and that's it. And it doesn't use a lot of power. It doesn't take a lot of your time. And because it's in the crock pot, it's much easier to do the follow-on prep. So if you were boiling the water or had it at medium heat, it's going to be churning. It's going to be pretty hot. When you pull the chicken breast out, the chicken breast is going to take a while to cool. A long while to cool. So while you're doing everything else, you're waiting for the chicken breast to cool so you don't burn your fingers pulling the chicken breast apart. Coming out of the crock pot, you can almost do it off the rip. But if you take the time to then put the noodles into the pot, measure out and pour your broth over the top, you're ready to go with the chicken. You can tear it apart at that point. Turn on your stove so that your broth is heating up and getting those noodles ready to go as you tear it apart. And it's easy to set this thing up and get it done within about 15 minutes after you've got everything done. You'll be all set, and you'll be sitting down for dinner. So again, it's inexpensive because you're just dealing with chicken breast, which, as we know, chicken's pretty inexpensive. The downside is the spices you're going to use are going to be more expensive, but they're going to last you a while. So I've been cooking pho now for several weeks because the way I was doing it before, I wanted to practice until I got it down. So I was cooking pho about every other day I was having it, and doing the first cook with the full chicken breast and then getting either 2 or 3 meals out of a full chicken breast. So I could get used to that rhythm of getting it done. Now, when you get to the leftovers, what I do is I take a fry pan, don't put anything in it, except I will dump in the veggies and the chicken that I've put aside, which I keep together in its own little bowl all together. And I'll put that on a very, very low heat just to warm it up. All right, it's already cooked. I don't really need to do much with it. So while I'm heating up the broth that I took out of the refrigerator with the noodles and letting that heat, I just let this sit on the side, let it go for a little while on low heat, just enough for it to be warm, and that's going to be my meal. Again, same process. Chop up the mushrooms, put it in the bottom of a bowl, put the broth and the noodles on top of that, and then put your decorative veggies and chicken on top of that. So that's what I got for you for hints this week, and I will talk to you guys all next week.